Oh, yeah, that's okay. That's good. That's fine. Hi, everyone. Hi. Um, hi, I'm Charlie. This is great. I feel like Madonna in the 90s. It's fantastic. Um, just click a thing, the clicker thing. Oh, great. Okay. Hi, I'm Charlie. I live and work here in Berlin. I moved here from London about 18 months ago. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but genuinely, it was a Club Mate that did it. It really got me into it. I'm a front-end developer. I specialize in design systems and large-scale Sass and accessibility and all those kind of sexy things are what I do. Um, I've worked on a few big projects and there's some big organizations. I've made Richard Murdoch richer by doing some of the Sky broadcast channels. I've worked at really cool places like the Association of Accounting Technicians based in the UK. That sounds so boring, but it's actually really, really cool. It's like it serves hundreds of thousands of people around the world. It's absolutely enormous membership-based organisation, and it was my first introduction to large-scale design systems, which is kind of relevant for this stuff coming up. I really apologise for my accent as well. If anybody can't understand me, it's okay. Most English people can't understand me, so it's talk to me later. I'll give a translation. I also worked at the BBC. I built last year's British national elections platform, the one where we elected David Cameron, if anyone remembers him. Seriously, if you mention Brexit to me, I'll go mental. And this is an amazing technological challenge. This had to work on every kind of browser out there, for all the sexy ones, all the evergreen ones, but right back to things like i6, i5.5, everything terrible. But it's absolutely incredible technical challenge and work with every organisation in BBC. And then election night, this was viewed by 18 million people a second. This was incredible concurrency. And over half the UK population saw it in like 24-hour periods. So for me, it was something you could not fuck up, honestly. But getting to the point of this, what is a CSS framework? Well, it's kind of not easily defined. We're a bit lazy with language in this area. But for me, it's something that helps you to build CSS. Makes it easier for you. So does this mean something like Bootstrap? I actually Googled, I read so much about Bootstraps, researching this image, it was incredible. To me, Bootstrap is something you kind of drop onto a website. It's a collection of, pattern libraries, design patterns. It's not really something you extend and expand. I know people call it a framework, but, maybe that's harsh of me. Is it something more like Bourbon? I never know how to pronounce that. That's a collection of Sass mixins and functions that you can use to output your own CSS. I mean, and that is amazing. I'm totally in awe of Bourbon, but it's not, to me, a framework. It's an impressive collection of tools, but it's not opinionated. So is it something in between? It's the most beautiful image ever. Maybe it's something as powerful as Bourbon, but which allows you to produce something like Bootstrap. Something that's a bit more opinionated, something documented with an input, a way of working, and an output. And maybe to use a terrible analogy here, but a framework isn't just the hammer. It's in the toolkit. It's not the toolkit itself. It's maybe the combination of tools and experience and manuals, the kind of stuff that allows you to produce client products. And I think it's Dave Rupert, sorry, the podcast, the Shop Talk Show guy. Please go and listen to that if you haven't already. It's great. We should be delivering a series of mini bootstraps to all of our clients. We should be handing them a pattern library every time. So they can build and extend their own websites. And so that's why I built my own system. It's called Loom. It's incredibly new, and it's a work in progress, but it's a complete framework designed for people like you and me to build pattern libraries faster. And it's not like Bootstrap. It's not a collection of pre-made pattern libraries that you can just drop onto a site. In fact, it comes with absolutely nothing out of the box. And it's not like Bourbon, which is, focuses on the generation tools themselves. It's much more a factory, a production line, something that allows you to, this is really clever, weave your own pattern libraries. Yeah, that's the reaction I wanted. So how does it work? I'm not going to concentrate really on how it works here. That's not what I'm here to talk about. If you want to see that, go on GitHub, have a look at the previous address. You can read it all you want. But as a quick overview, it's a Sass framework that takes in variables and spits out CSS. And it's built with design systems in mind, so that it's a standardized way of producing components. And it's nothing new. It's just using stuff that's out there already. All these kind of things have been around for years. It just combines all the existing things. But it's my baby, and I'm hoping it could be something better, So design systems are incredibly important. If you're not using them, please just change that immediately. Go and use them. They're vital. On a project of any size, you've got to standardize things like your spacing, font families, color schemes. Everything has got to be available to a team. So in Loom, every spacing unit, every color, every font family is assigned as a variable. And if there's a collection of things, so we have a collection of colors or a collection of font families, they become a Sass map. And that means all of these things are easily accessible, so that you can have your developers, your designers, whoever's producing this, they simply use a really English language phrase, get spacing large, and they've got it. It's easy. It's nice and easy. There's no more, margin left 25 pixels, all hard-coded values embedded in your code base. And it's a much more organized approach to things. And again, this is nothing new. This is things that other frameworks are doing and other companies are doing in their own code base. But this kind of thing is rarely enforced. And I'm hoping Loom will actually be a better way of enforcing design systems. Now, it prevents specificity wars through something called inverted triangle CSS. And if any of you follow the works of Harry Roberts, you'll know about this. If you haven't heard of ITCSS, that's because Harry Roberts is a secretive bastard and won't tell anybody anything about the stuff he does. But it's really cool. The cat's out of the bag about it now. And it's a way of forcing source order to be the definitive way of defining CSS specificity, which is really hard to say. So, for example, it uses the inverted triangle. And you can see here, it divides everything into layers. So all of your Sass comes in and gets divided into different layers, different types. And the least specific is at the top. And you can see it's broad. It does lots of things. And the most specific is at the bottom. Oh, whoa. Whoa there, soldier. And as you go down the layers, things get more specific. It's a really controlled way of doing selective specificity. And it works really well in teams. It's fantastic. At the same time, all the classes that you can potentially generate with Loom are kept as simple and as flat as possible. So there's no Sass nesting in Loom at all. It's really attractive, I know, but it's ultimately really destructive to your code base. And this lack of nesting prevents any particular chunk of CSS from rising above the average and trying to dominate all the others. Again, preventing those specificity wars. So it means no more of this, where you write really nested CSS because you think it's great and it's fantastic. And don't get me wrong, I instinctively do this even now. It's so instinctive. But it generates the CSS at the bottom that is so enormously specific that it's horrendous to override later on. Again, nothing new. This is just trying to enforce pre-existing good practice. So why build it? I'd initiated and developed another in-house framework on a previous project, and I found the process to be incredibly useful. But that one was built with specific projects in mind and didn't fulfill the needs of the broader community. So I wanted something that worked for all potential users and was agnostic about the way they'd output CSS. It let you choose that. And also there was the whole thing of, because I could, I wanted to. The whole thing, climb the mountain, it's there. I didn't climb a mountain. I would die if I climbed a mountain. I wanted to do things better. I'd seen similar frameworks. I'd seen similar things doing this, and I knew there's a better way of doing it. So again, like I said, I could stand here and go over every line of this in GitHub. I'm not going to. There's YouTube videos, I'm sure, where you can go and watch that kind of thing. But I just wanted to talk about the process I went through of learning from this. There's looking around, there's all kinds of different experience levels here. People have done things in different ways. And I think it's important to talk about how we produce these kind of things. It's part of the community experience. So this is what I learned while building Loom. First of all, set an achievable aim. Know what you want to achieve. And know what you want the tool to do. One of the biggest dangers of working on this kind of side project or something in-house, wherever you do it, is feature creep. Is in your own head, you see these new sexy toys and you go, oh my God, I've got to have React in this. I've got to have Angular 2. I've got to have, it's just no, you don't need any of that. You don't need it. I kept wanting to put JavaScript into here and into Loom, and no, that was pointless. It's a CSS library. So I had to look back and, it wasn't helping me to achieve my aim. Be very opinionated and be very proud about what you do. When you're looking at this, you're weighing up the pros and cons and you're taking some time to consider everything. When you've considered it, stick with it. Be proud. I was really nervous about the naming scheme I was using in here. Those layers I talked about. I've ended up prefixing them with numbers. Okay, so you can see them in order, going down 10, 20, 30, 40 settings, blah, blah, blah. And, oh my God, I'm getting signs here. This is terrible. Okay, and completely thrown me, my God. And the reason I did this was because to be honest, I'm slightly dyslexic, and I found it really hard to read lists of information. And so to me, that was really helpful. Somebody else would come up and go, oh, that's not the correct way of doing it. And I think this is a really important one because, there's a lot of us who in this community, they're not white, cis men, to be honest. And it's really, really easy to, get beaten down by other people's opinions or the opinions that you think other people have about you. So I had to keep this in mind all the time. And there will always be someone who comes along and tells you to do things in a different way. There's always little people hacking around at you, and to be honest, fuck those people. Do things your way. At the same time, your way could be terrible. So allow yourself some flexibility in things. Take the chance to learn from what you've done. If you go down the wrong path, give yourself a chance to walk backwards and go, no, that was a really bad idea. I'm going down another one. When I was building this, I had a terrible time with fonts. I built a whole kind of font system into this. I realized I'd really, really messed it up. It was terrible. And I ended up having to take that out, rebuild it, and rebuild half of the framework at the same time. And that wasn't changing direction for the sake of it, or for vanity, or because I'd seen some sexy new tech. That was for a real reason. So, don't be too rigid. Learn from other people's work as well. Even if you don't agree with it, learn from it. I mentioned Bourbon, I mentioned Bootstrap. They each have things in there that are absolutely amazing. Bourbon especially, it's just so amazingly powerful. I love it. Inuit CSS, there's one out there called that. There's developed by the guy who made ITCSS. I really don't agree with how it's done at all. But I learned so much from it, from reading its code base. So just tap into that community knowledge that's out there. People have put so much free information out there. Go and read their code. Go and learn from their experiences. They're invaluable. And again, as an example from Loom, I couldn't figure out how to do media queries effectively in it. It's easy to put media queries into your project, but to do them in a design system way, so you can feed in variables, that turned out to be really hard. And I spent ages racking my brain trying to figure out a way of doing it until I just stole it. It was easier. I'll tell you now. Okay. There's a project out there called Sass MQ, written by a guy called Kaleg, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's released under MIT license, allows you to take the code and drop it into another project. Just take it. When it works, take it. It's fantastic. But please go and check that project out. It's really, really brilliant. Please don't over-engineer things. Again, inspired by something I'd seen in another project, in Bourbon in particular, and which I'd really fundamentally misunderstood, I started working on a mixin that looked like this. It was long-winded and awful, and to be honest, I can't remember what it looked like because I've erased the memory from my mind. It was so bad. But I could have just written that. So know when to stop. Bring it back to your final aim. Does it actually add anything for the user? Does it add anything for your project? Or are you just doing it to satisfy a vanity whim? Don't prematurely optimize. This is another thing I learned. Don't polish the engine before you've built it. Things are going to change. And if you try to make things perfect from the start, you'll end up backed into a corner. Be flexible, like I said before. So if you want to create code, for example, I do it in the way of, I add a comment in. If I want to work on something, I put a comment in there. Then I come along later and try and add, new functionality into it. Try and make it work. Play around with it. Once I've made it work, then I commit it into my GitHub repo. And then I have the chance to make it better. I get to do these successive passes and just go around in the cycle of things. I know people will have arguments about that, about technical debt issues, but this is a balance you have to play when you're actually working on a project. And it's not just a coding issue. I mean, people in other industries do this. I mean, no one writes a novel perfectly from the get-go. Just sits down and goes, one day my grandma exploded, and goes on from there. They write out a structure and they bolt plot themes onto it, and then they go in and increase the, put the grammar into there. So it's not just us. Documentation is so sexy, it's unreal. I've learned this from right my own. And the analogy I have to use for this, it's like finding a good dentist. Don't know why to laugh at that. It's like finding a good dentist. If once you find a good dentist, you suddenly enjoy having someone stick their fingers in your mouth and you want to go back to them. And it's the same with documentation. Once you found a good documentation system, you want to use it. Despite seriously, I'm just looking at someone collapsing over there. Sorry. I found particular Sass docs was absolutely amazing for this. Suddenly I was able to just drop in comments and, Sass docs would run through them and build up a little manual for me. That was so amazing. I suddenly wanted to document everything. So, take a chance for it. And you're not just working in a vacuum. This is all for the rest of your team. This is for your community as a whole. So document things anyway. Just do it. And finally, come up with a good name. I know I called it Loom, right? And that is literally 4 letters, but that took me over 5 hours sitting in a bar with my partner trying to come up with different names. So I think it was like 4 beers to each letter in the name. And it was strong beer. I had such a terrible hangover the next day. But it's really fun coming up with a good name, and it's important for namespacing within your project, and for when you actually put this out there, as, as an npm package or a gem, it's important to get a good name. So anyway, that's me. I'm Charlie Owen. Thank you for listening. You've been very kind. You can ask me any questions later on. I think there's a pub thing happening. And also to mention, I'm also looking for a new position right now. So if anybody's after a large-scale Sass architect who can produce strange slides, I'm there for you. So thank you.